So here we are, April 18. Had an inch of snow a few days ago, but it's pretty nice right now. Big variety of stuff going on here. Here's a whole bunch of pots that were basically given up as surplus last fall, stored by my nephew on the side of his garage, covered with snow, water dripping off the eaves. Would have thought they'd be toast, and I think they're all alive. I don't know, it's a little hard to see, but they've got buds on them that are pretty good. And these are from the Plymouth times Rumney, hand pollinated. A lot of them are from Maine. They will be available for people this year. And looking out into the nursery, it's a little hard to see right now. Actually, I'm looking into the sun. So here's a tree. So I take my sheetrock buckets, cut a 3-foot long, 3-foot wide piece of burlap. This one I just dug up. That's from Kennebunk, Maine. These are the 3 nice big ones that were fruiting last year. They've been growing there too close together, but I'd like to move them now. There's a bunch that overwintered, and I'm in the there's an egg from the process of digging 8 trees up for Kurt Laffin, our vice president, to come get for educational plantings down his way. And these tubes are my experiment with the tubes. I actually personally don't happen to like them, but they do work for keeping deer away. There's no deer pressure where this is, right in town. It's ideal. I do have a fence around it, but don't need it. No deer here. So what I wanted to show was this one. So there's the bucket laying on its side with the burlap all ready for me to stick the shovel in, and I wasn't going to film this one, but it is pretty unusual to be able to. I dug it out, and if you can see there's about 12-inch taproot, which usually would get broken when I dig it, and whether it will survive the transplant. And one good example of how hard it is, sort of, to transplant chestnuts because they do have a taproot. I think they'll do fine. I'm going to show some more being dug up in a minute, but I wanted to show that taproot while it was available. So here we are, April 18th, taking a look at the chestnut starts and how they're doing. One of the beauties of having the lights, I turn them on between, I don't know, 4 and 8 hours a day, but every so often I skip a day, just trying to make it seem a little bit like out in nature where it's not going to be bright sun every day. I do think I've overstimulated them with too much light in the past. But one of the beauties of an overhead light is it keeps them growing straight. I don't have to turn them very often. If I didn't turn the lights on, within a couple of days they would all be bending fairly heavily toward that west setting, the setting sun in the west from that window. So it does work well to have the lights on, and every so often I'll turn the boxes 180 degrees, shift them around a little bit. There's a big variety in how they're doing. Some are doing real well, and some aren't. There's one of the ones where those poor little guys aren't going to make it. They keep trying. Once in a while they'll make it. From the same batch, that one did make it. That was actually a very precious batch, so even having one that made it was a good sign. The pencil there is telling me that I'm experimenting with Miracle Grow in these containers to see if I really do have to water them and fertilize them less. If you really don't have to water or fertilize them, then that's pretty good. These are the ones from Windham, New Hampshire. This is a new line, so it's kind of good. We'll get these into some of the GCOs. I believe this was Mark Meal's find, and I'm quite sure it's the first time those nuts have been harvested. These here, which were from Kurt, are the biggest ones. There's a real big one there. I don't know, a little hard to see, but boy, that guy's really growing. A little concerned when the leaves are that yellow, whether there's something wrong, but the ones beside it look pretty good. This one's actually started to branch. You know, it's got 2 branches here with buds on the end of it. So Going outside, oh, actually, I was going to show you. Here's what I think I showed you the other day, but here's what it looks like with a good strong fan on it. It really moves those leaves around. I would leave that on maybe, I don't know, a couple hours or more every few days. I usually forget, but when I turn them on, I think it's serving the purpose. I'll shift it around so they're not all blowing exactly from, the wind isn't coming from exactly the same. I can put this down and all of a sudden get the other ones moving so they all have a chance that, and I do think it does a good job. Going outside, these are some late pots. This is pretty late to be potting them, but certainly the nuts are good. Looking over here at the nursery, I'm going to have my Sue hold and show digging up another one of those. We've already done one, we'll do another one. So here we are potting some nuts very late. It's April 18th, and this is one of the bags that Mark Meal sent. These are from Moose Hill Road in Sharon, Mass. And if you can get a close-up of this, Sue, these guys are going to have some pretty big roots on them. You can see those are certainly still plantable, no question. In fact, they're fine. So once again, just a little hole, get that tip pointing down without breaking it, carefully back cover it. I'll put a little bit more over this afterwards. Now here's one. How do you get that pointing down? Do you do it like that, or do you do it like that? So I'll probably split the difference. And in fact, there's an old nut that didn't make it. So there's one that started to grow, has a little root system. And I will talk later about how you want to get that nut off of there before you put your plants outside, or be very careful. A squirrel or a chipmunk will dig that plant up and usually kill it while they're getting that nut off. So you take the nut here, carefully get the point down, cover it up. I always have to remember which ones I've done those two. There's one that's gotten a little longer than you'd like. It certainly is growable, but I'll take that one. It's a little more straightforward. That actually needs a little bit more peat moss in it. Stick that down in there, give a little tap, throw a little bit more on. So I've done those two. Can't remember, did I do that one? No. Okay, so I'll fill these up, carefully label them. I have learned you want to put metal tags on them for sure. I'll get all of these metal tagged so that, whoops, I did plant that one. Poor guy, sorry. So, gonna go over here and dig one up in the nursery. So, cut off a 2.5 or 3 foot piece of burlap. You do want to use the kind of burlap that's biodegradable. You don't want to use treated burlap. The beauty is that you can just leave the burlap on when you plant it if you want. You don't have to, but I think it's a good idea to. So this says right there, all-purpose natural fiber biodegradable. This was a 3 foot wide by 24 foot long piece of burlap. It's not very expensive, so you take one of those, you take your bucket. For ease of accessibility, let's dig this one right here up. That's a nice, well, that's unusual. Huh. I was so pleased that I had everybody tagged. They're all tagged around here. This one either fell off or, well, I didn't tag it. So we're still going to dig that one up. I'll tag it as a wild type. Pretty much all, in fact, all of these except for 5 or 6 B3 F3s on the other end. These are all wild type, but most of them are tagged. Pretty nice. This is, well, Gage Road in Wilton, New Hampshire. 2017, that's the year the nut was harvested. So it grew 18, 19, and then 19, 20. Huh. Well, this thing had a hard life. If that's actually 3 years old, I would have guessed this is going on its third year. So, gonna get my shovels. Nothing wrong with a regular old spade. I did put it on the grinder this morning. Just put it in the vise and take the grinder and put a pretty good sharp edge. You could do some real damage if you hit your toe on the way down, especially if you're barefoot. This is actual transplant planting, which comes in handy for getting deep roots. And then this is kind of a pretty stainless steel one from England, which seems to be the one I like. So I'm going to go around, and with a sharp edge, I can hear that cutting through all the roots. So you're hoping, the reason you're doing it now when it's dormant is you're hoping that it'll recover fine. They don't all, but usually they do. So you go a little bit in, all the way around, and then you try and save that taproot. So you loosen it up. That taproot's still holding on. It's hard to get deep enough. Okay, there we go. So now I just get the burlap here, tip this out as a unit. Let's see, have we got I don't see a, whoops. Okay, so I'm just going to slide that right down in like that. Pretty simple. And then you just tuck this in, and that thing's good to go. You can lift it out in one piece, set it in your pre-dug hole. You can leave the burlap on. If you do, you'd want to take scissors and cut off the top. But one of the beauties is that if you try and get it out of that burlap and the dirt ball falls apart, you've set it way back. Unfortunately, there's the taproot I left behind. So that was coming out of the bottom. It's pretty tough on these things, but they will usually make it. Okay, I see we have a